Styling a form is no different from styling any other element on a web page. In the exercises site, I've opened forms_styling.html. You can find a copy of this file in the Creating Online Forms folder in the course Assets. Let's turn on Live View to see what the page looks like. All I've done so far is to set the font family and the background color of the page and the color of the text. So what do we need to do? The first problem that I see here is that the labels and these text fields are badly aligned. Then the field sets around the radio buttons and the checkboxes go the full width of the page. We need to fix that, and we also need to fix these two labels here. So let's scroll back up to the top of the page. And seeing as we're working in Live View, we don't need the Property Inspector. I'm going to minimize it by right-clicking and selecting Minimize. So if I scroll down, we can now see the whole form. This is only an example page, so the styles are embedded in the head of the page. So I'm going to select Style in the Sources pane of the CSS Designer. And the first selector I'm going to create is for the labels. So I just used a type or tag name selector for label. Going to set the width of the labels to 75 pixels. And then their display to inline block. That's aligned these text input fields nicely, but it's created problems for the labels down here. We'll need to sort that out later. But the other thing I want to do is to make the labels bold. So go to the text area, font weight, bold. That's had a disastrous effect on the labels inside the field set, so we need a descendant selector for field set label. And we'll set the font weight to normal. And then go up to the layout section and we'll set the width to auto. There we are, but the labels here are still only 75 pixels wide, so we need to create a special style rule for these two labels. So in the selectors pane it'll be label, and then we'll use an attribute selector, open square brackets 4 equals then comments, comma, label, open square brackets 4 equals program. Those are the attributes for those particular labels. And we'll set the width to auto. That solves part of the problem, but I'd like the select menu and the text area to go underneath the labels. So I'm going to change the display from inline block. We need to change that to block. There we go. Now the legend of this field set and this field set is really the label, so what we need to do is to make that bold. So another selector for legend, and we get the code hints because these are type or tag selectors, and we're going to set the font weight to bold. That's beginning to look good, so we need to get rid of the field sets here. So another selector, field set. Going to set the border to none, so we need to select the border section, and then it will be, let's scroll down, where is it? Border style, set that to none. The border has gone. The problem is that we've got some padding here. So we need to sort that out. So let's go up to the layout section, and what we do is let's make sure that there's no margin. Select that, set that to 0. That's moved it a little bit. Let's see what happens if we work with padding. Select that so the padding all around is none. Yes, that's moved it to the correct position. So we only need a few more changes. I think I'd like to have these input fields a little bit bigger, also the text area. So we need to create a style rule for input, Now if I create a style rule for input only, that will affect all input elements. I need to make it affect only text input fields. So it needs to be an attribute selector, so open square brackets, type equals text, close square brackets, and then we're going to make the width 200 pixels. That hasn't affected this one because this is an email input field. So we need to edit this selector, and we'll type input and another attribute selector, type equals email, close square brackets, and it's affected both of them now. So let's increase the size of the text area. Again, a tag or type selector for text area. And we'll set the width of that to 300 pixels and the height to 100 pixels. And I'd like to indent the form a bit, so let's create another selector for form, and we'll give it a margin on the left of, well, let's scrub and see how far we like it to be. 50, 60 pixels. I quite like that. So just scroll a little bit and look at the handiwork. Yes, I think that that's looking quite nice. So I set the display property of label elements to inline block and set their font weight to bold. That produced the result I wanted with the text input elements up here, but it created problems down here. So I used a descendant selector for the labels inside the field sets, and used attribute selectors for the last two labels. I removed the border margins and padding from the field sets and made the legends bold so they match the other labels. I also adjusted the dimensions of the text area down at the bottom and of these two text input fields, and because this is an email input field, I needed to create this group selector of input type equals text, input type equals email. And finally I added a 60 pixel left margin to the whole form.